Hey guys, Sarah Halina here, and today I'm back with another book recommendation, so stay tuned. Okay, so the last time I did this was October 19th, 2020. Oh gosh, that was so long ago. And it was for Black Widow Forever Red, and I promised in that video that I would do the sequel. It took longer than expected, but it's here. Black Widow, Red Vengeance by Margaret Stohl. Now, the reasons why it took so long was because for some reason, every time that I kept reading a lot, letters kept getting blurry. I don't know, it was weird, but yeah, so it took longer than I anticipated to actually read the whole giant book, but it was so good. Yeah, I jumped the gun with that one, but it was so good. Yeah, so Red Vengeance, Black Widow, Red Vengeance by Margaret Stohl. Okay, so let's see if I can remember somewhat how I do these things. So the cover is very similar to Black Widow Forever Red. We got sort of like the 3D pop of the letters for Margaret Stohl and Black Widow Red Vengeance. The Marvel, not really, but yeah, and even along the side here we have the pop of slight 3D. It's not massively 3D, it's just a slight pop. And then of course that really cool cover artistry of Natasha and Ava. And again, we have a exclusive Red Widow comic inside. So Red Widow, for those who don't know, is Ava. So let's go have a look at that. Let's get to that. For some reason, the pages are being really weird today. Yeah. So we have Red Widow, the last opus. Yeah. So I'm going to read the little bit of text at the top of the comic page here, and then we'll kind of skim through the short little comic, but I'm not going to go through the whole comic because, yeah. But Ava Orlova was only a child when she was taken from her home to be trained as a weapon by a group of disavowed Russian secret operatives. It was only fitting that Ava's savior was the infamous Avenger known as the Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff was trained by the same hands. Now, years later, the two have been reunited, but Ava's no longer in need of rescue. A hero in her own right, she's following in Natasha's footsteps. She is Red Widow. Yeah. So, we have the comic inside. Very cool. Some very cool looking scenes happening in this comic here. Yeah. Just quickly skimming through. Red Widow, the last opus. Yeah. So, I skipped over some pages, accidentally, but also kind of maybe deliberately. No, it actually was accidentally, but yeah, we're not gonna go through the whole comic, but it's a nice little comic, and I like that there's little comics included at the end of the stories. There was a comic included at the end of Forever Red as well. It's just a nice little side story, little comic as well. So, I mean, it's nice. It's fun. Now, the back. Very, very simple. We got the fact that it's the sequel to the instant New York Times bestseller Black Widow Forever Red. We got our summary. We got our Black Widow symbol there. Yeah. So I'm going to read the summary and then talk about, I guess, a little bit about the book without spoiling it, because I don't want to spoil it for people. But yeah, let's read the summary and then go from there, I guess. The Avengers' iconic Master Spy is back, and she's seeing red. Emotions are dangerous, which is why the graduates of Moscow's famed spy school, the Red Room, are taught to keep their enemies close and their loved ones at a distance. Black Widow and Red Widow, also known as Natasha Romanoff and Ava Orlova, forgot that lesson once. But they won't forget it again. And the widows have inherited something else from their shared Moscow past. A relentless need for vengeance. Ivan Samodrov is dead, but his network of terror remains. While the widows search South America in order to extinguish a smuggling operation with ties to their old nemesis, their old Red Room not only attempts to assassinate them both, but also hacks their secure shield network. As a result, Ava and Natasha find themselves thrust into a trying mission of international intrigue that takes them throughout the world and back to New York City, where their friends Dante and Sana become unlikely targets as well. Once again, nothing is as it seems. No one can be trusted, and no one is safe. Not unless the widows can stop a conspiracy involving stolen nuclear warheads, mind-altering chemical weapons, and ultimately betrayal by old friends and enemies alike. I love the summaries, but the summaries are long. And I'm surprised I made it through that, and I'm probably messed up a lot. But yeah, that's the summary. For anybody who wanted to pause and actually read that and make sure that I didn't really screw that up, because I probably did. I attempted that like 5 times and I like barely made it past the first sentence. So, yeah. So basically, Red Vengeance. You know, it's once again a Natasha and Ava story. Like, that's basically the gist of it. It's Natasha and Ava. And, you know, Oksana and Dante, they play a rather significant role. Like, I feel like every, like, minor character that was, like, introduced in Forever Red comes back and plays, like, a more pivotal role in Red Vengeance, which is interesting, I think. Like, they play more of a role. But also, Coulson and Tony are also playing a more pivotal role. And, like, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, comes in and she plays a pretty large role. Like, there's a lot of, like, characters playing rather large roles. So, whereas Forever Red felt more like it was Natasha and Ava in, like, the starring roles. Like, if it was a movie, it would be their story, and everybody else was sort of like, you know, the supporting cast. This is more of like an ensemble cast. Like, everybody really kind of had their roles to play, and I feel like it worked a little bit better, I think, having all these different characters. But there's all these different chapters, and all the different chapters are told from the perspective of different characters. So, like, we have the prologue here, and it's from Natasha's perspective. And the chapters are told from the perspectives of, like, various different characters, and so you really kind of have to be mindful of which character is being told from, because, like, if you're not mindful of that, a lot of times it feels like it goes back in time, and it's like, oh yeah, because we're going back and we're seeing it from this character's perspective, so all that stuff that happened with this character has not happened yet, and it can get kind of confusing if you're not paying attention to that aspect. So that's something to keep in mind when reading, is to keep an eye out for which character the chapter is being told, like, from the perspective of. So keep that in mind for sure. Because I started doing that. I started, like, not paying attention. I just, like, kept going and going, and then I'm like, wait, they're talking, like, oh, right, because we're not, okay, we haven't reached that point yet. And it was, like, it was very confusing, and I was like, right, because we're backtracking. So you really have to kind of keep an eye on that. Sometimes it doesn't really matter, but sometimes it can get very confusing. So, because there's a lot more characters and they all play more prominent roles, that definitely factors in a lot more. Yeah, so something to keep in mind with. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something to keep in mind with. But yeah, a lot more characters also means a lot more fun and a lot more side quests, I guess. But yeah, I mean, a lot more time with familiar Avengers. Tony, Carol, Coulson. So that's fun. That really is. Now, the formatting is very similar to Forever Red with the Shield case files. So basically, for anybody who didn't see my Forever Red video, let's see if I can find where the Shield case file is. Basically, before every chapter type thing, there is a Shield case file. Sometimes it's a big case file where it's like a transcript, and sometimes it's a short little case file where it's just a file copy. So this one has two. This is before chapter 1, right after the prologue, before chapter 1. So we have a file copy one here, and then we have a transcript one here. So this is between Natasha and Coulson, and this is a file copy to Coulson from Artie. And basically, the Shield case files kind of hint at things that happen in the story, kind of leading you to the end of the story, kind of maybe even to the end of the chapter, without giving too much away. Just sort of giving you the little nuggets so that you can go and be like, okay, what's happening? Like, where is this going? Why is this happening? Like, and I don't know, it's a fun way to go about it. Like, kind of giving you the ending without giving you the ending. I don't know, it's fun. But one thing I want to talk about is the prologue. So let's see where the prologue is. The prologue is told from Natasha's perspective. just to note. And the prologue isn't very long. Like, the prologue starts on page 2, and it literally ends on page 8. And page 8 really is only, like, a quarter of the page long. Like, the prologue isn't long, but the prologue, the end of the prologue, is basically the end, sort of the end, almost the end of the story. And it gets you hooked basically right away. Like, I picked up Red Vengeance, probably like almost immediately after I finished Forever Red, and it was like maybe like 2 a.m, and I couldn't sleep. And I read the prologue, and I was like, okay, it's only 8 pages. I'll read the prologue, and then I'll like probably fall asleep. And I was like, how am I supposed to sleep? I gotta get to that. Like, I gotta figure out what happens, because it leaves you hanging, and it's like, what is going to happen? Like, how do we get here? Like, what is this? So that is really fun, because the prologue just hooks you right away, and it's like full steam ahead. And like I said, I really wish that I was able to get this done a lot earlier, because I really wanted to figure out what was happening. And like I said, it basically came at the end. So it's like 400 and let's see how many pages this one is. This story is 438 pages. Now, granted, it is resolved before page 438, but it is very close to page 438, where we get to the prologue, and it's like, oh, come on. Like, I just gotta get back to that, because I gotta know what happens. So be warned that if you're the type of person that's like, I'm hooked, I gotta know what happens, be warned that this will get you, this prologue will get you, and be prepared that you may end up wanting to start this when you have time to sit down and read it. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind, I guess. I don't know. But we talked about the beginning, and I want to talk about the end. And I don't want to spoil anything, which is really, really hard to do. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't. I really, really don't. But it is so hard not to spoil anything, especially this ending. So basically, a snippet of kind of maybe a little spoilery, but not really spoilery. Natasha's talking to Unsub. Let's call this person Unsub, because that's literally what they're called. We get Unsub right there. So Unsub. So let's call this person Unsub. And Unsub says something to Natasha that literally has me saying, Margaret Stoll, where on earth is book 3? Because it's not that Red Vengeance doesn't end satisfactorily. That's the word I'm thinking of. I don't even know what the word I'm thinking of is. But it's not that it doesn't end in a satisfactory way. Like, it does. It concludes Natasha and Ava's stories together, apart, together as a unit, separate from each other, as characters individually. Like, their stories, like, I can see where Red Vengeance is the end. But also, we drop that line at the end, at the very end. That's like, but we could have a book 3. And where is book 3? Yeah, I don't think we're getting a book 3. But I wouldn't object to a book 3 running with the end of Red Vengeance. Yeah, I mean, it's just a minor thing, but yeah, those that read Red Vengeance know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know, they may sit there and say like, you know, it doesn't need to be picked up, but it's a very interesting thread. It really is. It's a thread that needs to be pulled. But yeah. Now, there is one more thing that I want to address, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the story, I guess, itself. But basically, it's one thing that I guess the issue comes up with when addressing, like, sequels. And it's, how readable is Red Vengeance if you haven't read Forever Red? And the truth is, I actually have no idea. Because I read Forever Red and I could not separate the two. Like, to me, I would say read Forever Red first, because Red Vengeance is really a continuation, and the two really go hand in hand with each other. Like, Red Vengeance basically picks up almost like right where Forever Red leaves off. But there is also this element that Margaret Stoll does a good job of giving the readers a sense of who these characters are and revealing their connections with each other within Red Vengeance. While not necessarily restating it too much for those that are already familiar with these characters, if that makes any sense. So, like, there's not this disconnect if you haven't read Forever Red. Like, you can read, I guess, Red Vengeance as a standalone, and not be completely lost. Like, if the reader's smart enough, they can piece together the missing pieces. But honestly, I would say you get more out of Red Vengeance if you read Forever Red first. But I think Red Vengeance can stand on its own, I guess, provided you're willing to put in the work to actually put the puzzle together. Because there is a puzzle to put together if you haven't read Forever Red. If you read Forever Red and then you read Red Vengeance, the puzzle's basically already there and you're just riding the wave and you're just like, these characters, I know them. Let's do this. But, yeah. There's a bit of backpedaling if you haven't read Forever Red. So, I don't know. Let me know. Did you guys read Red Vengeance? If you did, what did you guys think of it? Because personally, I think I loved it. I think I might have even enjoyed it a little bit more than Forever Red. But I don't know. I really did love both. If not, will you guys check it out? I don't know. Did you read Forever Red before Red Vengeance? If there is anyone that read Red Vengeance before Forever Red, or even instead of Forever Red, did you understand the story of Red Vengeance? If that was the case, like, were there things that confused you? Because I really am curious to know, like, if Red Vengeance really can stand on its own. Because I'm just guessing. Because, like I said, I really couldn't disconnect the two. But, yeah, I'm really curious to know whether it really can stand on its own. Yeah. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the notification bell so you be notified when I upload my latest videos. You can check out more book recommendations by clicking here. You can check out more Marvel content by clicking here. And follow all my socials. The link is in the description down below. And I will see you all in another video. Bye, guys.